There are quite a bit of missing persons cases that aren't totally classified as missing 411, but they are nonetheless still spine-chilling, and for the most part, unexplainable. Today we're going to be looking into 5 terrifying mysteries that I think are the most interesting out there. Although these 5 have some good theories as to what exactly happened, none of them have ever been fully solved. As a quick disclaimer, I don't have all the answers or the most in-depth explanations of each, just the basics and facts of each case. My name is Emerald, and welcome to the Haunted Hour. The first mystery is the disappearance of Brandon Swanson. Brandon Swanson was born on January 30th, 1989 in Marshall, Minnesota. On Wednesday, May 14th, 2008, Brandon was attending a party in Canby, Minnesota. He had been drinking, but not enough to get plastered drunk, only a few beers or so. That still likely impaired him a little bit though. When leaving the party, he took a Route 68 home, which is a back road. Shortly after midnight, he drove his car into a ditch. He called his parents and told them the situation, and he told them that he was somewhere near Lind, Minnesota. When his parents went searching for his car, they did not find it. After searching extensively and several frustrating phone calls later, Brandon told his dad that he would just walk to Lind and meet him at a place called the Lindwood, a popular bar in Lind. Brandon's father was waiting for him there, but Brandon himself never made it. Around 2:35 a.m., Brandon called his father again, describing where he was at and what he was seeing. Brandon said that he was walking around in a field and he could hear rushing water nearby. A short time later, while on the phone talking to his father, at exactly 3:10 a.m., he yelled, "Oh!" Then the call went silent. His father hung up and called back, and it went straight to voicemail. He could not reach Brandon at all anymore. After contacting authorities, they were able to figure out his last known location from his phone records and found that Brandon was not around Lind. Not in the slightest. He was actually right outside of a town called Taunton, about halfway in between Marshall and Canby on Route 68. That explains why his parents never found him while searching for his car. They found his car in a ditch, but no Brandon. Then the next day, the search effort began, but it was fruitless. Not a single clue was found. The search lasted for 6 days, and some people had kept searching for 30 days, but in the end, Brandon is still missing and nobody knows for sure what happened or where he went. It's hard to speculate what exactly could have happened, and there are many theories, but I think the most plausible explanation is that he fell down a hidden hole or well system, or maybe fell into a river and drowned, or perhaps that he fell into a river, got out, then died somewhere from hypothermia. There is, of course, the possibility of foul play, but there's simply no evidence for it. The bottom line is, we will never know for sure what happened to Brandon Swanson, and until he is found, this case will remain an unsolved mystery. The second mystery is the disappearance of Chris Kremers and Lizanne Froon in Panama. Chris and Lizanne were 2 girls from the Netherlands going on vacation in Panama on March 15, 2014, and were planning on staying for a few weeks to see the country, learn Spanish, and volunteer at a local school on March 29th in a town called Boquete. They were shocked to hear from the school they were planning on volunteering at that they were a week early. This meant that they had some time to kill. On April 1st at 10 a.m., they started on a hike up the La Pianista Trail, which was near the Continental Divide. They took the dog of the family they were staying with on the hike with them. Now, this trail is not a particularly hard hike, and it could be done in a few hours. Because of this, they packed lightly, not nearly enough supplies for even an overnight thing. Hours later, the dog returned to the family's house, but not the girls. This was an immediate cause for concern, and the family notified authorities immediately. They had missed a guided tour for the next day, which confirmed the suspicions that something was terribly wrong. The search lasted for weeks, but nothing was found. The girls simply vanished. Months later, on June 14th, a woman from the town of Alto Romero found a backpack on a riverbank, suspiciously dry. The pack belonged to Lizanne Froon. They also found Lizanne's shorts folded neatly on top of a rock nearby. Inside the pack, they found 2 phones, a digital camera, sunglasses, bras, about $83 in cash, a water bottle, and Lizanne's passport. The phones and cameras still worked. They started looking into the photos and were able to make some disturbing discoveries. On that day, the first 10 or so photos showed them happy, healthy, and fine. Then the pictures took a sharp turn. A week later, on April 8th, almost 100 photos were taken from between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m., with most of them being nothing but terrain. Some photos showed belongings, some strewn about on a rock. One photo showed an up-close photo of blonde hair with some blood in it, and this picture had to have been of Chris. It's not known whether she was dead at this time or not. The pictures are the scariest part of this case. The purpose of all these photos are unclear. Were they taken so they could have temporary light to navigate the darkness? Or were they taken to try to reveal a predator or human chasing them? Nobody really knows for sure. There was one photo that was taken that was permanently deleted. To permanently delete a picture from this type of camera, you need to hook it up to a computer and do it from there, which is possibly the strongest evidence for foul play. What was on that picture? Why did that single picture need to be deleted for good? It's no doubt something sinister. Now let's talk about the phone records. The first attempt to call emergency services was at 4:39 p.m., which was only about 6.5 hours after the start of their hike. They called 911 as well as 112, which is the Dutch number for emergency services. They attempted to call for help 77 times, with not even one of these attempts working. Chris's PIN was entered incorrectly numerous times. This was either Lizanne attempting to access Chris's phone after she had passed, or a third party trying to access her phone for some reason. The former is the more likely one here. They eventually found partial remains of the girls near where the backpack and shorts were found. Some of the bones were bleached, further indicating a possibility of foul play. The full remains of both girls were never found. One thing that baffles me is why didn't one of the girls record a quick video on either their phone or camera explaining the situation? Even if it had been a short 30-second to 1-minute video, they could have explained so much and given so many answers, but they didn't. Maybe they couldn't, but if they were able to, that could lay this whole mystery to rest. There are two possibilities for this case that I see. Either they made some wrong turns and got completely lost, or someone, or even a group of people, were chasing or hunting them. They could have also stumbled upon illegal activity and ran away from pursuers, which then got them lost. I lean more towards foul play because of the state of the partial remains that were found, as well as the one picture being permanently deleted. However, this case has not been solved, and until it is, it will be one of the most baffling, haunting mysteries out there. The third mystery is the disappearance of the Yuba County Five. These 5 men were Ted Weir, Jack Madruga, Bill Sterling, Jack Hewitt, and Gary Mathias. They all lived in the Yuba County area in California. An important note here is that they all had some form of intellectual disability. On February 24, 1978, the boys had a basketball game in Chico, California. Then after that, they stopped at a gas station called Bears Market for some snacks. While there, a conflict stirred up and a fight broke out. This was most likely the reason they then drove into the Plumas National Forest instead of driving home to Yuba County. Now, there was a very important man in this story, and his name was Joseph Shones. He was the last person to see the boys alive. On this night, in the Plumas National Forest, he got his car stuck on the side of the road. Trying to get it unstuck, he gave himself a heart attack, having no other option than to stay in his car warming up and waiting until morning. This man has multiple accounts of what happened next, so it is ultimately unclear as to what actually happened. Taking related points from his accounts, he allegedly saw the car they were driving in pull up behind him, Jack Madruga's 1969 Mercury Montego. The baffling thing about this is when the car was found, it was in perfect condition. It had a quarter tank of gas left and could have easily been dislodged from the snow it was stuck in. Yet it was abandoned. Nobody ever saw or heard from the boys again after this. Until June 4th, when an off-roading motorcyclist discovered Ted Weir's body in a United States Forest Service trailer in the Daniel Zink campground. This was 19 miles away from the abandoned car. In the few days following, the bodies of Jack Madruga, Jack Hewitt, and Bill Sterling were found nearby. Gary Mathias, to this day, has never been found. Bill Sterling and Jack Madruga were found 5 miles south of the trailer. Jack Hewitt was found a few miles northeast of the trailer. Inside the trailer were plenty of food, water, and gas Ted could have used to heat himself up and keep himself alive. But it never was. There was a little bit of food consumed, but at the time of his discovery, there was plenty left. Also inside the trailer were Gary Mathias' shoes, indicating that he was alive and with Ted at some point. Because of that, and the fact that Gary was never found, it points to the possibility of Gary and Jack comforting Ted and setting out to get help. Maybe he and Jack Hewitt went to get help, with Jack succumbing to the elements shortly after leaving, then Gary pressing on and succumbing to the elements later on. This doesn't quite explain how he was never been found though. Animal predation has been confirmed for Bill Sterling and Jack Madruga, so that is still probable for the others. There are multiple mysterious factors in this case. Why did they abandon their car that was in perfect condition? If they had been scared or chased into the woods, why did they go so far? Why weren't all of the supplies in the trailer used? Why did Bill Sterling and Jack Madruga die before the others got to the trailer? And above all, Where is Gary Mathias? It just doesn't quite add up. My guess is either the people who they had a fight with followed them up to the woods and followed the boys into the woods, or Joseph Shones possibly could have been more involved in this case more than we thought. Like the other mysteries, however, this one remains unsolved and we are left in the dark. The fourth mystery is the Sierra Sounds. This mystery isn't about a disappearance or death, rather about certain creatures heard in the Sierra Nevada mountains. In late 1971, Ron Moorhead and Al Berry were in a small campground deep in the Sierra Nevada mountains. The campground was not well known at all, and extremely secluded and difficult to get to. Also in this campground was a small shelter built by this group of 5 men, Ron and Al being included. This shelter was intended for a safe space away from bears. One night in late 1971, after a long day of hunting, the group was relaxing around a fire when they began to hear grunting sounds just outside of their campsite. Thinking it was a bear, they all started towards the shelter, but it wasn't a bear. The sounds they were hearing were unlike anything they have ever heard before. Fear started setting in after this, and they all hurried to the shelter. The sounds they were hearing were one big whoop, shortly followed by another whoop sound from somewhere else entirely. All night, they were in the shelter hearing all sorts of sounds and movements. Through small holes in the wood of their shelter, they could see a part of the campsite. They never once saw the things making the noises. After the trip was over, Ron was determined to find answers as to what these creatures were. He came back with the same group and brought with him a recording device. This night was the same as the first time they heard them, only now they could record the sounds. The recordings were analyzed by Dr. R. Lynn Curlin, who was a professor of electrical engineering at the University of Wyoming, and he determined that the recordings were authentic and raw, meaning they weren't edited at all. He also said that the voices could not be human because of their vocal ranges. Does this prove the existence of Bigfoot? Not necessarily. There is a chance this was all faked, but it is ultimately up to us to decide if we want to believe it or not. I find the professional analyzation from a professor in electrical engineering to be credible, however. I'm not saying this was Bigfoot or any type of Sasquatch, but it is possible. It could also be something else or a group of wild men or feral people. It is ultimately unclear. The mystery here this time, fortunately, was not an unexplained death or disappearance, rather unknown creatures deep in the wilderness, which is nonetheless still terrifying. The last mystery for now is the disappearance of Kenny Veach. Kenny was a YouTuber who loved to explore the wilderness, caves, and mines. He had a strong passion for it. One day in November 2014, while hiking in the Mojave Desert of Nevada, he discovered a peculiar type of cave, one which was shaped like an M. He described his experience with the cave as strange, because there seemed to be a very low frequency coming from the cave, and it made his whole body vibrate uncontrollably. It was unbearable. He had to get away from that cave as soon as he could. When posting about this experience, viewers encouraged him to return to the cave and document it to prove it. Feeling eager, he set out to find that same cave. However, he was unable to locate it. Facing backlash from his viewers and being accused of faking it all, he decided to set out once again to find the M cave with undaunting dedication. Before going back out there was a disturbing comment made on one of his videos discussing it, saying, "No, do not go back there. If you find that cave entrance, don't go in. You won't get out." As ominous as this comment was, it did not deter Kenny from trying to find it again. The third time he went out, he did not bring his camera. He was not equipped for an expedition at all. After he went out, he never returned. Kenny Veach was never seen again, and no remains were ever found. Authorities found his car, as well as his cell phone, at a familiar mine shaft, the one that he was standing at in his video describing the M cave. This sparked massive speculation about how he died. Most people believe he did find the M cave, but was killed by military personnel. Others believe he fell down deep into a mine shaft, and some people believe he took his own life. I am included in this last category. I personally believe this because his girlfriend suspects this highly. Also, why would he not bring his camera with him? Why would he leave his cell phone at that mine shaft? One last reason is because his girlfriend reported that he quit his job to start a new business that wasn't going so well. He was massively in debt. Things were not going super well in his life. His girlfriend also reported that one day they were talking, and Kenny had told her that if he is ever to take his own life, he would do it in a secluded place, somewhere no one would ever find him, away from loved ones. All of this leads me to believe that he did take his own life. The mystery here isn't exactly how Kenny disappeared, although that could be strange. I don't believe it is. The real mystery here is, what was that M cave? What made that low frequency vibration? What was in that cave that was so terrifying Kenny couldn't go in? And probably the strangest fact of this case, why couldn't Kenny find it again? I personally believe it was some sort of entrance to a top secret military base. Nothing in nature just does that. Whatever that was had to be man-made. Or made with technology that didn't come from here. Or something that also is entirely possible as well. Kenny did fake the whole thing. All of it could have been one big setup for his own disappearance. If this is the case, then this is not mysterious at all. Nevertheless, we will never truly understand the full story here, and until he is found, Kenny Veach remains one of the most haunting and heartbreaking mysteries. I find unexplained and scary mysteries to be very interesting, and there are far more out there that I would like to cover, so at some point I will be doing more of these. In the meantime, suggestions of mysteries or just other stories or scary events would be welcomed, as I am eager to talk about more of this stuff. What do you think happened in these cases? Are there rational explanations for each, or is it truly shrouded in the unknown?